Our story of the Great Bloodline begins when a person named Samadare calls out to Senpai, "If you don't get rid of that thing, you'll definitely regret it. It's very dangerous." But Senpai replies, "Don't worry about it. I have faith that what I'm doing isn't wrong. It's the right thing." The origin of this great bloodline is unknown, but long ago, there were terrifying and merciless creatures called Oni. They slaughtered humans and destroyed everything in their path, showing no mercy or compassion. They killed young and old, elders, children, and women without hesitation. Their hearts were like stones, or even harder. Yet, a very strong man named Momotaro confronted them. This man stormed Onigashima, where countless Oni resided, and this was just the beginning, the start of the war between Momotaro and the Oni. What exactly is the story? Follow along to the end to learn the full tale. The scene now shifts to Shiki, a boy with light blue hair talking to his friends. He appears to be a weapons dealer, and from the general appearance of his location, he also seems capable of repairing and manufacturing weapons. At that moment, someone who is probably his father enters, very angry. He yells, "Shiki!" then grabs him and slams him to the ground. This father, named Tsuyoshi, exclaims, "You fool! You've been fired. Explain this to me. How did this happen? What did you do, you idiot? Tell me, what are all these cursed weapons? You became a weapon dealer without telling me?" Shiki replies, "Father, don't worry, it's a simple matter." His father grows angrier and angrier, saying, "My son, you're a fool. You can't do this, and you're acting so arrogant. Forget about dealing weapons and come with me to the liquor store." Shiki tells him he doesn't like selling things that intoxicate people and cloud their minds. His father then leaves him and goes to the liquor or herb store where he works, while Shiki continues to train with weapons. Just moments later, something very strange happens. A swarm of small, organized insects moves towards him, wraps around his leg, pulls him from the balcony, and throws him to the ground. Shiki gets up but has no idea what's happening. The atmosphere is dark and foggy, but he looks ahead and sees a mysterious man who doesn't seem human, and he somehow knows him. Perhaps they had been watching him through some form of reconnaissance. A car speeds by and crushes the eccentric man. Then a voice says, "Shiki, get in quickly!" As they drive away from the incident, after a long distance, the father speaks to Shiki, saying, "My son, the only option left might be to escape this country." Shiki is very angry and asks, "Why did you run over that man for no reason? He didn't do anything to me." His father replies, "My son, that man wasn't dead, and he wanted to target you. Listen to this dangerous truth. You, Shiki, are from the Oni bloodline. As for the man you just saw, he is from the Momotaro bloodline." Shiki becomes agitated and says, "Father, are you joking? What are you saying, father?" But his father tells him, "I know it's hard for you to believe, but it's the truth, my son." At that moment, the enemy reaches them and wants to kill them, enveloping the entire car with those insects. They stop the car and get out quickly, then the car explodes. The father searches for Shiki but doesn't find him at first. Finally, he finds him inside a house. When he enters, he sees the man who is chasing them standing before him. The man says, "Welcome, you fool. The blood of the Oni only makes you a plague on humanity, and eradicating these plagues is our mission. I am a member of the Momotaro organization." Shiki is surprised and asks, "How can you still be alive after being run over by the car?" At that moment, Shiki's father enters, and the situation seems to become even more exciting. He begins to speak, narrating, "The mythical story of Momotaro was true. For thousands of years, the Momotaro and the Oni were in a state of war, passing down the fight from generation to generation. Eventually, the descendants of Momotaro united and formed what is now known as the Momotaro organization. And that's when the Oni began to hide among humans, out of fear of the Momotaro. As for this black mist, it's a unique characteristic possessed only by those who carry Momotaro blood. Then, the fight between them begins. It seems they know each other. The enemy says to Shiki's father, "It's been a long time, senpai. We've both grown old." Shiki's father becomes angry and says, "You fool, don't call me by that name again." With this, Shiki realizes that his father was originally from the Momotaro and that he changed his name to Tsuyoshi. The fight between them is intense, and the son watches, understanding nothing. Then, the Momotaro attacks Shiki's father and strikes him directly. His father falls, blood spilling everywhere. The Momotaro then reprimands him, saying, "How can you protect this Oni?" referring to Shiki. Tsuyoshi replies, "Do you think a father needs a reason to protect his son? Of course I will protect him. He is my precious son." But Samadare did not recognize this because he will not change his truth that he is from the Momotaro organization, and asked him if he forgot how dangerous the Oni are and that he raised one of the Oni. So he will be ousted too, and mocked his words and attacked him and directed a strong blow to him. But Samadare stood up to him and they directed blows to each other, and Shiki was amazed by what was happening because he had no idea what was happening, and they continued to direct blows to each other, and Samadare was angry because Tsuyoshi contained one of the Oni, and he knows that they do nothing but harm humans. And Shiki is still surprised that Tsuyoshi did not tell him. Then Tsuyoshi attacked Samadare, and Samadare was well prepared for him and avoided Tsuyoshi's blow until he succeeded in seriously injuring Tsuyoshi, which made Tsuyoshi fall to the ground, and the power of the black fog disappeared from him, which made Shiki very sad for his father. Then Samadar advanced at Tsuyoshi and asked him if he thought he could defeat him after all he had been through since he left. Then Shiki shouted at Samadare and asked him to fight him now, but Samadare was waiting for this moment in the first place. Then Tsuyoshi grabbed Samadare, and Samadare wondered why Tsuyoshi was defending this Oni to this extent. But Tsuyoshi saw that the father needs something to protect his son, and that he will protect him forever because he is his dear son, and it is not his fault that only blood runs inside him, and God, will he kill a child who knows nothing about the Oni in the first place? But Samadare did not care about his words and showed a weapon from the black fog. And Shiki was very afraid for his father and asked himself why he does not do anything while he is watching this, and why his father is the one who is happening to him this, and that he is the target for him, and began to turn into one of the Oni. And the power of the Oni began to appear to him, and his body began to fill with blood, and was very angry and vowed to Samadare to kill him. Then he turned into the Oni completely and broke his bond and disappeared from his place, which surprised Samadare by this. Then weapons suddenly appeared through Shiki, aimed at Samadare and began to fire at Samadare and was standing up to her. Then Shiki disappeared again. But the falling blood revealed his place at the top. Then Shiki landed on the ground after he had completely transformed and was very angry, which made Samadare very nervous. Then Shiki attacked Samadare and began to direct blows to him. But Samadare succeeded in cutting off Shiki's hand and almost split him in half. But Shiki moved away at the right time and showed his arm again as if he was not affected by anything, and showed a set of heavy weapons and fired at Samadare. And Samadare succeeded in standing up to them, but he could not continue and began to flee from the bullets directed at him. But Shiki did not stop firing at him until Samadare flew high and threw one of his special weapons at him until it led to an explosion in the place where Shiki was. And Samadare also prepared after that until Shiki appeared to him suddenly and directed a strong blow to Samadare, until Shiki advanced to him and fixed him to the ground by trampling on him with his foot and was directing at him a lot of firearms and almost fired at him, but he fired them in the air, which led to a large gap in the building, and Samadar was not under him. Then Samadar appeared from under the stones and was very angry with Shiki. Then Shiki fell to the ground and the weapons began to disappear and began to return to his nature and wondered what happened to him, and he is surprised, and Samadar told him that this is a state of confusion as a result of memory loss and physical transformation. Then Samadar showed his weapon again and advanced to him and told him that if he dies here, all his fears will end and all the Oni must also be eliminated, and almost killed him. But Tsuyoshi appeared in front of Samadari suddenly and received the blow on behalf of his son Shiki, and also succeeded in injuring Samadari. And Samadari asked Zabani if he is still sticking to your decision, even after seeing that Oni. And Tsuyoshi remembered Shiki as a child, and Shiki was angry about his father's injury in his place. But Tsuyoshi smiled and told him that he was very happy, which made Samadari amazed by this. Then we move outside the building where people gathered thinking it was a gas explosion. Next we go inside the building, and Samadari disappeared, but Shiki asked him to wait. Then Shiki lay on the ground, and Shiki was very worried about his father. Shiki wanted to contact the ambulance, but Shushi didn't want that and asked him to listen one last time. He apologized for hiding this from him and told him they would kill him because he carried Oni blood. He wasn't with him anymore and needed to become stronger, strong enough to kill Motaro and the Oni blood running inside him, so he could live freely without anyone stealing his happiness. He asked him to promise this, but Shuki yelled at him to shut up, saying he didn't want a farewell speech. He lifted him up and started moving with him, saying they had a lot to talk about. He asked if he understood him or not, but Swoshi closed his eyes, realizing it was good for Momotaro and the Oni to be side by side. He fell to the ground dead, but Shiki didn't believe it, telling him he hadn't apologized yet and that he was happy they didn't share blood. He urged him to get up because he wanted to hear his apology and asked him to say anything, crying intensely for his sorrow. Then one of the young men named Nito came up behind Shiki and hit him, knocking him out. This man was surprised that Shiki didn't notice him and re-evaluated his assessment of him. We then moved to the Momotaro headquarters, where they said that Samadari made a mistake and that they shouldn't reveal themselves to humans. They also believed they shouldn't let people know that the Oni lived among them, coming to a solution to kill all the Oni children. One of the Oni members then spoke to Nito on the phone, telling him he heard that he had managed to pass some people in the test. It had been many years since they had a successful applicant, and they would suddenly get a bountiful harvest after all these years of drought. He told him they were strong and that it was their first time to have such Oni. He asked if he had found another one of them. Tanyu told him he brought him, but he saw that evaluating him was a waste of time, and if he proved to be useless, he would get rid of. The episode begins with Shiki dreamed when he was on a picnic with Babe, then remembered being killed by Samadare. He woke up, startled, with Nito next to him doing exercises. Shiki looked at him very surprised. Nito finished his exercise and told Shiki he doesn't like useless people. Nito introduced himself to Shiki as an Oni and showed him proof. He told him he wouldn't reveal their location and that his father's body was safe. He brought him here for two reasons, assessment and retrieval. He then pulled a board closer and said he uses these skates because they're very fast. He wrote Motaro Organization on the board, explaining it means black fog, and anyone from Motaro controls this fog, like the person who killed his father. This organization is dedicated to eliminating Oni. To counter them, the Oni organization was formed. Nito's job is to find Oni, assess them, and determine if they're suitable to join the organization. He put the board back and untied Shiki's hands so he could answer questions, but Shiki got angry and demanded Nito fully untie him. He asked what he did to his father, threatening to kill him if he did anything. Nito told him he lost a point for telling him his father was safe, adding that if he wanted to harm his father, he wouldn't have told him he was safe. He asked if Shiki lacked the mental capacity to understand this, and that he lost 35 seconds of his life asking such a question. Shiki didn't care for Nito's words and didn't trust anything he said. Nito saw Shiki was stubborn and that the current situation had nothing to do with his father. He said the assessment would continue if Shiki had no more questions, but Shiki remained angry and demanded to be untied. He lost another point for being tied up because he was violent. Shiki asked him to stop the assessment because it angered him, but Nito insisted on assessing him. Shiki thought to himself, angry what he would do. He told himself to calm down. After that, he told Nito he had never heard of an assessment before and didn't have time for it. He asked his opinion on being untied first, then talking, because he had a score to settle with his father's killer. He looked at Nito, smiling, and asked him not to get in his way. Nito asked him not to give him that scary look, which annoyed Shiki again. Nito then hung his umbrella on the board after realizing Shiki was the suicidal type, and he had the perfect way to deal with him. He approached Shiki after untying his necktie. Realizing the usual assessment method was ineffective, he told him he wasn't the type for a necktie. He then wrapped the necktie around Shiki's neck and choked him tightly, explaining that the true nature of creatures appears when close to death. He told Shiki to use his small brain and get out of this situation, because if he couldn't, he would die. Shiki began to transform again, and blood started flowing from his body. He lost consciousness and fell, a lot of blood on the ground. The blood turned into branches and struck Nito, pushing him away from Shiki. Shiki then appeared in his Oni body, pointing a weapon at Nito's face and firing many shots. But Nito was unaffected, using his blood umbrella. He realized Shiki couldn't use Oni blood correctly and would teach him how. However, he was sure Shiki wouldn't remember anything when he returned to his true consciousness. Shiki attacked Nito and struck him, but Nito didn't move confident. After that, Shiki returned to normal and started asking what happened for him to lose consciousness again. He looked at his arm and it had transformed again. Nito told him he wouldn't remember what happened and that it was hard to control on only blood because when he became enraged, he lost himself in his memory, destroying everything in the process. Shiki had no idea what Nito was talking about and asked about the strange substance coming out of him. Nito saw that a knife in a fool's hand was terrifying. He told him this wasn't a rage state and he controlled his only blood, so no further explanation was needed. He told him he was unqualified. Shiki was surprised by this and thought to himself that it was illogical, wanting Nito to explain again. But what he discovered was that Nito had great power. Shiki admitted to Nito that he was very annoying but very strong, and because of this, he would swallow his pride and beg to be his follower, because he wanted to become stronger to avenge his father. Nito refused, saying that in battle, not using one's mind equals death. However, Shiki became enraged without thinking, unable to control his blood or use his mind, and they didn't need him because he was useless. This angered Shiki, but he endured it all because he wanted to join him after the contempt he faced. But Nito saw this was the right time to get rid of Shiki, because he shouldn't be allowed to roam free like this. Nito then wounded himself and revealed his blood umbrella, but Shiki didn't despair, thinking if he didn't move quickly he would die, and it was either do it or die. He attacked Nito again, and Nito was ready with his thorny blood umbrella. Nito thought Shiki had lost his mind, but Shiki succeeded, managing to transform only his arm, not completely. Nito was surprised by this, and Shiki shot Nito. He fell to the ground, but Nito was unaffected again and destroyed the bullet aimed at him. He saw this as beginner's luck because Shiki was about to go into a rage. Nito then used his power and conjured a group of puppet soldiers pointing their weapons at Shiki, but Shiki told him he wouldn't give up and managed not to go into a rage. He told him he wouldn't give up yet and scolded him, saying he did it and asking for his opinion. Nito asked himself if he controlled his blood, but he also controlled not going into a rage. He asked how he did this, but Shiki's answer to Nito was that if he wanted to know, he should make him his follower. Nito would think about it, which angered Shiki, but Shiki knew nothing about Oni blood. Yet he heard Nito talking about controlling it and thought about how to do it. When he saw Nito wound himself and reveal the umbrella, an idea occurred to him. Since they were both Oni, he would imitate him, but he didn't know how until he racked his brain and managed to create a weapon from his arm. Was it not good that he succeeded? But Nito saw this as foolish logic, which angered Shiki. Nito believed it was impossible for someone this stupid to control blood, because usually reckless, emotional people like him found it hard to control their blood and were the worst to possess this power, usually to control Oni blood. And what was happening with Nito went through his mind. He needed to calm down to avoid raging, but Nito would only use 30% of his power, which would make him extremely bored in prison. He returned to the present and told himself he had to maintain balance, avoid raging, and also control his blood. He listened carefully to his mind, but Shiki was different, and it also went through his mind that he couldn't control his emotions and couldn't use his power in a lesser state, and that he did what he wanted and wanted to gain power at any cost. And he wouldn't listen to his mind no matter what happened. Nito discovered that Shiki wasn't acting rationally, but was using his instincts to control his blood. This type had many flaws, but possessed explosive energy. But Shiki told him he would absorb everything Naito taught him to become stronger and avenge his father, and it was possible he could become one of the suitable men Naito wanted. But Nito refused again, saying what Shiki did was reckless and gambling with his life. He asked if losing control wouldn't be good. He said a suitable fighter had contingency plans, and if every failed guest made him start from scratch, it was ineffective. He then stabbed him in the head with his weapon and told him not to even think about making him his follower for a single second. But in reality, he didn't hit him with the weapon. However, Shiki was angry at Nito's rejection, but then Nito thought about making Shiki his student, which shocked Shiki. Nito told him he had no chance but succeeded, and he wouldn't explain further, but he thought he was a failure from the beginning after judging him beforehand. But Nito would explain better. He then told him about an island called Hell's Threshold, known as Oniashima, and in its center, a school built for Oni called Rasetsu Academy. It wasn't just any school, and it had a large number of Oni soldiers dedicated to training and fighting against Mataro. Shiki was astonished that he was now on an island, but then he took a hit from Naito because it wasn't important now. Naito continued talking while Shiki was in pain on the ground and told him that in this academy he would learn how to control blood, and fighting techniques of course, as well as general education, and the history between Oni and Motaro, and that he would be his teacher. He also told him they would live in a dormitory, train every day, and fight the Motaro organization. That was all, and Shiki thought his head would explode. Nito saw Shiki's brain was the size of a glass cup, and Shiki was angry at this insult. But what was more important to him now was asking Nito if he would become strong so he could kill the villains who killed his father. Naito told him that it was up to him because if he didn't become strong, he would be expelled. But Shiki was excited that he would be very strong and that he would be with them and join any school with them. Then we moved to Shiki's new room, surprised by the growth of the thing on his head. Naito was waiting for him outside, continuing his training. Shiki came out wearing his new school uniform and couldn't believe he was going back to school again. But Naito told him he wasn't the only one who succeeded, and that he was the lowest level among them. If it turned out that he was useless, he'd be expelled. Shiki asked him to be patient with him, and then asked about his father. Nito explained that his father's body was in the morgue, and that he hadn't taken care of it because he didn't know his religion, so he left it for now until he could arrange the funeral. He told Shiki that diving into blood was a waste of time. Shiki thought Naito's way was very rude, but Naito advised him to be strong so he wouldn't feel regret again, and not to be a fool who doesn't learn from his experiences. Shiki felt that Nito had become nice to him, but then Nito moved and told Shiki he had 15 seconds to get to class. Shiki thought that was unfair and that he couldn't do it, but Nito told him that if he didn't, he'd get kicked out. Shiki asked him not to act like a devil, but Nito was indeed an Oni. Then they moved to Shiki's new class, and Shiki was exhausted. He started to think about how to enter the classroom, whether to kick the door with his foot or act calmly and dignified like the principal. Naito ended up kicking the door for him to get in and fell to the ground inside the classroom, causing a nosebleed, which made him uncomfortable. There were a group of students like him in the same class, and one student named Jin asked if he had a tissue. He then asked him why he was wearing a mask and if he had hay fever, but Jin asked him not to talk to him, which shocked Shiki. Then Shiki approached Jin and told him he had a sharp tongue, but Jin didn't care about Shiki's words. Shiki laughed at Jin for not having horns like him, and asked if he was a small Oni. Jin told him that with training, he could learn to manage his horns as he wished. However, Jin showed his horns and told Shiki that someone who boasts about it is a foolish beginner. Another student called Ikari asked Shiki if the word fool applied to him too because he had visible horns, but Jin included everyone, which made Ikari angry. Ikari told Jin he was ready to fight if that was what he wanted. Another Oni girl agreed, and her name was Koyena, but someone asked them to respect class rules and that he had a tissue instead of all this fighting. There was another girl named Homari who didn't have a tissue. Then there was Rakuro, who wasn't bothered by anyone and felt pain in his stomach thinking he might die. The Oni with green hair wanted to rip a page from the book, but Shiki asked him not to. Still, the boy with green hair wanted to follow the rules if he was going to keep the peace. But he tore a page out of the book and gave it to Shiki to use as a tissue. Shiki thought it would hurt his nose, but he got angry at Jin for his contempt, and Jin confirmed that he indeed despised him, which upset Shiki. But then Nito appeared and told them they weren't here to play. The two of them were surprised to see Nito behind them. Nito asked Jin about his pale expression as if he had seen a ghost, and the students were in shock. Then Shiki asked to switch seats because he couldn't stand Jin. But Nito told him to deal with the situation. Nito informed the students that today's lecture was supposed to be an orientation about the school, but they would be doing something else instead. Since they were on, they would play a game of tag. Everyone was excited except for Shiki, who felt shocked that they would be playing. Then they moved to the Shinra forest, and Nito told them they had 1 hour to return to school without being caught. If anyone got caught, they would be restrained. And if everyone got caught, the game would end. Shiki thought this was just a regular tag game, but Naito informed them that anyone who didn't reach the goal in time would get expelled, which upset them and made Shiki angry. He thought this was madness, but Naito told him that this school was not ordinary, and he needed to understand that it was training because after the exercise, they would be in the front lines against Motaro and their lives would be at stake. He hadn't used his blood, but they were allowed to use their own blood. However, if one of them went berserk, he would use his blood then. Jin then asked Nito what would happen if he killed him, because if he thought he could defeat him without using blood, he shouldn't be sad if he got killed. But Nito told him to give it a try because if they succeeded, they would graduate immediately and be assigned to the unit of their choice. Shiki was amazed by this and thought that if he graduated, he would close in on his father's killer immediately. But he found it hard to kill Naito. Of course, Naito then told them they all came here for a purpose, and if they wanted to achieve it, they had to keep winning. He would keep throwing challenges at them, and if they couldn't overcome them, they would fail. Nito thought most of them were ready and looked at Shiki, saying, "Except for one of you." He asked Shiki if he would withdraw, but Shiki got angry at his question and told him not to joke with him. He told Nito that if the man came at him with everything he had to return the favor double. Thus ends today's episode. If you liked the video, please click like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. The episode begins with Naito, then reveals that there is another rule, and takes out 2 balls that are still smaller than mine. He tells the students that they need to have a ball with them when they reach the academy to pass this test, and then suddenly throws them into the restricted area. The students think that since there are only 2 balls, they will have to fight for them. But then Naito reveals that they will be divided into teams. The first team has Shiki, along with Jin and the timid pink-haired Omare. The second group has the delinquent named Ducati and the nerd Guji, while the third group has the nervous Roku and Quina, who seems the most confident out of everyone present there. Nato tells the 3 teams that he will enter the restricted zone 15 minutes after them so that they can get a head start. But Shiki interrupts him, saying that he doesn't want to team up with the masked weirdo. Naito tells him that he will be expelled if he can't work in a team, and he is forced to take his words back. After that, Homer politely introduces herself to Shiki, who has never had any sort of female interaction in his entire life. He immediately gets butterflies in his stomach as he sees Homer approach him, and he confidently tells her that he will protect her. She gets flustered on hearing this and tells him that he doesn't need to go that far because all she wants is to not get in his way. Next, she goes to introduce herself to Jin, but he is an edgy Tate fan who doesn't even bother to respond to her. Homer's low self-esteem kicks in, and she starts crying and apologizing for talking to him. Shiki starts yelling at Jin for hurting the girl's feelings, and then he quickly moves on to Comfort, telling her that she should not ruin her cute looks by crying. He then returns to taunt Jin, but the Tate fan tells him to stop being a beta S. Naito interrupts their quarrel and tells them to head inside because they don't have all day. Jin and Shiki immediately run towards the restricted forest, and after a while of staring around cluelessly, Homer also follows them. Inside, Jin starts jumping through the trees like a ninja from Naruto, thinking about how killing Naito will earn him his graduation and the right to join whichever squad he wants. He wants to take this chance to get on the front lines and face his greatest enemy again. But then suddenly, Shiki tries attacking him from behind, snapping him out of his internal monologue. Jin asks him what the hell is wrong with him, and Shiki replies that he is going to prove that he is stronger than him. Jin is all in for a fight as well, and he removes his mask to reveal some terrible scars around his mouth. Shiki is creeped out, but he says that only weaklings show off their old scars. But Jin doesn't fall for his taunts. He simply removes his gloves, revealing that his hand is covered in stitch marks too. He tears one of the stitches to let out his blood and turns it into circular saws. Shiki is shocked to see this because he thinks that the author of Chainsaw Man will sue them for copying his ideas. Jin tells him to stop wasting his time and run away if he is scared. But Shiki replies that if he runs away now, he won't be able to avenge his father's death. Jin is taken aback on hearing that, but then he suddenly grows menacing as he tells Shiki that they will never be able to understand each other. Shiki tells him that he doesn't want to understand him in the first place and bites his thumb to release his blood. However, he fails to turn it into a gun this time and panics, wondering what exactly he should do to make it work. He decides to fight back using a stick, because that's the only option he has. But he soon realizes that he is no match for Jin, who can cut trees with just one strike of his chainsaw arms. Meanwhile, Homer is trying to find the 2 boys when suddenly she hears the loud thud from trees falling on the ground. She suddenly panics and her inferiority complex kicks in, thinking that she is not fit to be in a place like this. However, she cheers up a bit on thinking that Shiki called her cute, and she decides to look for him, not realizing that she was just a few feet away from one of the balls. At the same time, Shiki is trying to fight against Jin with his bare fists. Jin doesn't even use his chainsaw powers against him, and he is still able to whoop his with ease. Shiki keeps wondering how can he control his powers so easily, but then he realizes that Jin's ability is different from his tornadoes. He loses his focus while thinking about the true nature of their abilities, and Jin is able to knock him down with a single punch. Shiki feels frustrated because of this, and Jin decides to let the loser cry in peace. However, just as he starts walking around, Shiki gets back up on his feet, telling him that the fight isn't over. The pissed Jin just sends a chainsaw towards him, and at the exact moment Homer arrives there. Thanks to her negative survival instincts, she doesn't even notice she is walking right in the line of fire. Shiki panics on seeing this, and luckily he manages to get her to safety, even though he gets slightly wounded in doing that. He quickly gets up from top of Homer and tells Jin to apologize to her, but Jin replies that it would have been her fault if she died from his weak attack. Shiki is pissed at this, but then suddenly he hears Homer chanting, "She is sorry," like a prayer. He tells her that it is not her fault, but Homer is in a trance and she suddenly starts bleeding out from her nose. The blood slowly takes the form of a giant human, and both Jin and Shiki freak out, wondering what in the name of Attack on Titan is this? Homer tells them both to run away because her female Titan is going to kill them. Just as she says this, the female Titan hits the ground with her full strength, and Shiki barely avoids getting hit by her attack. Jin, on the other hand, jumps right towards the female Titan to fight back, but his chainsaws can't do much damage to her giant body. Shiki asks Homer if she can't stop that thing. Then she apologizes because she can't do anything. She suddenly collapses after losing too much blood, and Shiki decides to get her away from the female Titan to help her. However, he is shocked to see the Titan protecting her, and even Jin wonders if Homer's blood has a will of its own. Suddenly, the female Titan starts spitting blood violently, and while Jin hides behind a rock, Shiki takes the full force of the attack head-on. The crying Homer asks the female Titan to stop calling her elder sister, and Shiki gets up, confused about what she means. Homer once again asks him to run, but Shiki refuses, saying that she will die of blood loss if he doesn't help her, and he doesn't want to see anyone else die in front of him ever again. Suddenly, the female Titan lets out a powerful roar, whose shockwave reaches even the rest of the students outside the forest. Nato watches everything from a treetop, and he decides to let Shiki and Jin try to deal with Homer's blood release ability before he steps in. Back at the location of the battle, Shiki tries injuring himself to draw blood and use it as a weapon, but that doesn't happen. The female Titan attacks him and he dodges, but then the female Titan scoops up some rocks from the ground and hurls them at him. He takes a hit and gets flung away, but the thing that hurts him most is how pathetically weak he is right now. He has never lost a fight before, but now he is just a useless brat. He starts crying because of frustration, but then Jin comes out to join the fight and tells him to go home if he is going to cry like a bit. Shiki gets mad at him and tells him that he was just sweating from his eyes, but Jin doesn't have time for that. He slices open his wounds again, and this time he creates 2 different types of chainsaws on either arm. The damage he took from the female Titan's previous attack is still bothering him, but he is determined to win every fight in front of him. Nato just watches from afar, and he is impressed that Jin can create 2 types of weapons at the same time. He begins explaining how Oni blood can take any form they imagine, but it is often influenced by their past trauma, preferences, and experiences. Meanwhile, Jin rushes towards the female Titan, using the circular chainsaw to climb up. He then tries to ape Levia Kremen by attacking the female Titan's neck, but she sacrifices an arm to protect herself. While he fights the female Titan, Shiki screams at his hand to make something. He wonders why he can't make a weapon when Jin can. But then suddenly he realizes that Jin only makes things for cutting, and even Homer has a personal connection with her female Titan. He thinks that he can make guns because he likes them more than an average American, and he suddenly figures out how to control his powers. On the other side, Jin is having a hard time fighting the female Titan, who suddenly lets out a loud roar that bursts his eardrums. He loses his sense of balance and thinks that he is going to die, and even Nato gets ready to step in, but then Shiki declares that he will take the fight up now. He points a powerful grenade launcher at the female Titan, and Nato is impressed that he figured it out. Shiki is thrilled to try out his new weapon, but then the female Titan attacks him. He dodges her attack and then fires a grenade at her, blowing her apart instantly. And both Jin and Nato are stunned to see his power. With that, our episode for today concludes. Wait for us in future episodes. We kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all our new content. The episode begins with Shiki revealed his weapons and told the monster to stop screaming. He aimed at the monster with his blood weapon and felt that this weapon was part of his body and that it was amazing. But the monster threw a punch at him, but it didn't hit him. But Shiki was still aiming at the monster and fired a projectile at it that completely destroyed it, which greatly amazed Naito and Jin with his power. Shiki was very happy about this. Homari then lost consciousness and the sky rained blood because of Shiki's power, which also manipulated the weather. Then Shiki felt dizzy from losing a lot of his power and fell to the ground too, unable to move. Then Naidito appeared to him and told Shiki he couldn't move because he'd lost a lot of his power and spilled a huge amount of blood. But Shiki wanted to show Naidito he was wrong and that he could move again, but when he stood up, he fell to the ground once more. Nito thought that he might die if he used too much blood and that he still had a long way to go to improve. But Shiki asked Nito to take more care of Homari because she had also lost a lot of blood, and Nito assured him he would. Nito thought Shiki was facing death, but he was worried about others and focused on them. But while Nito was busy talking with Shiki, Jin attacked Nito with a strike. But Nito successfully blocked it and managed to push Jin away too. But Jin saw that these people were unimportant to him and that he shouldn't waste time with them. But Nito asked if Homari needed emergency treatment. But Jin didn't care about anyone but himself and showed his weapon, again. But Naidito didn't like discriminating against students. but he admitted to Jin that he hated people like him. Then Nito asked Jin to calm down because he hadn't used his blood like him, which angered Jin a lot. He then attacked Nito and landed several consecutive strikes on him, but Nito blocked them, and he saw that the blade in Jin's hand hadn't killed him at all. But when Jin started attacking again, Nito released smoke at him, which made Jin unable to see anything in front of him. Jin thought Nito was using the smoke so he could attack him by surprise, but he vowed that if he came closer, he would cut him in half. Then Jin took several shots to his arm, but he couldn't figure out where they came from. He quickly hid behind the tree and tried to find Nito's location, but Nito shot him again and told him that since he liked close quarters combat, he would maintain a distance between them. He kept firing shots at him, which were rubber bullets, but they would make Jin feel pain because of the damage he took from the giant in his right hand. And Nito was hitting Jin by aiming for his weak points. But Jin had more than one fighting style, even if Nito wanted to fight from a distance. Then Jin showed his weapons again and dodged Nito to escape his shots. This time, Jin fired his weapons towards Nito, but Nito dodged Jin's attacks. Nito discovered that Jin had long-range combat strategies. But Jin kept throwing blades at Nito, but he couldn't hit him until Nito flew high and Jin was flying behind him. And Jin thought he had successfully caught Nito, but Nito threw a grenade at Jin, which caused a large amount of smoke to appear, affecting Jin's vision again. And he wondered about the number of tricks this umbrella had, and he wondered if he would shoot him again from a distance. But Nito appeared from behind Jin and delivered a powerful blow that knocked Jin to the ground. Nito made it clear that Jin should always remember that not all attacks are from long distances, and he discovered vulnerabilities on his right side that left him open to hits, and he needed to protect that side. Jin tried to stand up again, but he couldn't. Nito asked Jin, "Did you think you'd win while injured?" and advised him that he should properly assess his opponent's strength. Then, Nito tied Jin up using his umbrella, completely stopping Jin from moving, which surprised Shiki. Nito acknowledged that if this were a real battle, he would have died, which made Jin very angry, and he told him that this wasn't over yet and tried hard to stand up, but he couldn't. Then Nito asked Jin if he was desperate and if he wanted to see his father that badly. This surprised Jin that Nito knew about this, and he wondered where he found out. But Nito admitted he had looked into Jin a bit and also knew other things, like his father being Momotaro, which surprised Shiki because Jin's father was also Momotaro. Then Jin admitted that his father was from the Motaro clan and remembered when his father killed his entire family and also his ambition, and that he caused him many scars on his body, and that he ate from trash to stay alive until he met his father again, and that he now lives for only one thing: to kill his father. Then he managed to free himself from the umbrella's restraint and told Nito he wasn't afraid of death. But Nito saw that this was enough and knocked Jin to the ground with great force. And Nito gave Jin advice: don't die for your goal, but live for it. Because if you don't understand this, you have no future. Then Nito called and asked for the school nurse to be brought and told them Homari was out of the competition and Jin was restrained. Then Shiki stood looking at Nito and told him he could move now, but he only had 5 minutes left, and Nito showed him that he found this ball on his way, but Shiki thought this wasn't fair. But Nito gave Shiki 2 options: either move quickly to find another ball, or take this ball from him if he could manage that. But Shiki immediately fled and Nito chased him. But Shiki tricked Nito, pretending to escape, and appeared from among the trees to Jin, telling him he would help him, but he had to work with him because it was impossible to defeat Nito alone. But Jin refused this, thinking it was a disgrace to receive help from someone like Shiki. Then Shiki asked Jin what was more important to him, his pride or his goal, and that Shiki didn't mind dealing with someone he hated if it helped him reach his goal. But Jin saw that this was none of Shiki's business. But Shiki admitted to Jin that his father was also a Momotaro and that they had common ground. He asked him for help again, but Jin insisted on refusing. Moving on to Nito, who was still searching for Shiki. Nito heard a sound and found Shiki still running. Nito landed in front of him, which greatly surprised Shiki. Nito thought Shiki was returning to school, but he hadn't gotten any of the orbs yet and hadn't succeeded with this, which made Shiki angry. He told himself that Jin was cursed because he made him bait. Then Jin appeared and attacked Nito. It was revealed that in the past, Jin had agreed to help Shiki, but on the condition that Shiki would be under his command and work with him. Then we return to the present. Nito dodged Jin's attack, but Jin succeeded in tying Nito up using the rope he was restrained with. Shiki grabbed the other end of the rope after Nito was tied up and they tried to pull him, but they couldn't, but Jin threw a blade at Nito, which Nito dodged. Shiki had an opportunity to take the orb from Nito's hand, but the orb was thrown in front of Jin. Nito saw that only 3 minutes were left and they could return if they ran at their maximum speed. He imagined that if Jin grabbed the orb and ran, Shiki would likely chase him to try and steal it. Nito thought of using this conflict between them to get the orb back, but Shiki was happy about this and asked Jin to pick up the orb and run, which surprised the others. Jin did exactly that and started running after picking up the orb. Shiki was very happy that he had gotten the orb from his teacher, Nito. But Nito explained to Shiki that if Jin went to the finish line with it, he would win alone, and whoever failed would lose, which greatly shocked Shiki. Nito saw that Shiki's stupidity ruined his plan, and that he didn't think about winning or losing, but only about what was right in front of him. Then we moved to Jin. While he was still running, he remembered Shiki's words to him and how he was happy for him, which made him stop and go back to him again, greatly surprising Shiki. Shiki wondered if Jin didn't know the right direction, but Jin didn't want to owe Shiki twice, and it was better for him to be expelled and complete his goal himself. He gave the orb to Shiki and asked him to go in his place. Then a strange, small animal appeared between them, surprising both Jin and Shiki, but Nito introduced them to this animal, saying it was called Moku, and that it was their messenger who delivered urgent messages quickly. Nito thought there was an emergency because of Moku's presence. He pressed the button to listen to the message, and they heard that the organization's branch in Kyoto was under attack by Motaro and needed support. Then we moved to the rest of the Oni students. Everyone thought they were late and wondered if all three of them might have lost. Then, Shiki, Jin, and Nito returned to the other students. Shiki then told the other students that the situation in Kyoto was dangerous. Naidito informed them that the practical training had ended, which angered Ikari. But Nito clarified that the organization's branch in Kyoto had requested urgent support and that they would head there immediately. Then we moved to the sea, where they were on a ship heading to Kyoto. Nito was exercising and Shiki was trying to hide his horns, succeeding at that too, but I told him that everyone could do that and he was the last one to be able to do it, which shocked Shiki. Shiki scolded Ikari, but Ikari asked him to show what he had and scolded him back. Then Joji asked Naito, aren't they beginners to participate in this battle? But Naito said he had no other choice, and that the other classes were on external fieldwork, as were the other teachers. He told them that they wouldn't fight, but would perform support tasks, and that they wouldn't be on the battlefield at all. Shiki wondered why they wouldn't fight, but I saw that they hadn't just stopped their training, but also wanted them to be assistants. However, Shiki told Ikari that this way he wouldn't be expelled. Joji thought support was also an important role, but I wanted combat experience, not hard work. He told Joji, shut up glasses, which made Joji take off his glasses, and ask him if he liked the situation now. Shiki asked Naito if they would only be providing assistance. Naito confirmed this, saying he didn't want to increase the number of casualties either. Then Kuina wondered why they were going in those outfits. Naito thought their original uniforms were too eye-catching and asked them to act like normal students and not do anything that would make the police stop them. Kuino thought Nito was worried about her. Then Rokado asked what kind of tasks they would be doing, because his heart pounded when he saw a lot of people and he felt like he was going to throw up. He wondered if he was going to die, but Nito explained to him that it was seasickness. Then, he told him that every municipality had at least one unit of the Oni organization stationed there. These units had two main responsibilities. First, the combat unit, who fight on the front lines when the Motaro attack, and second, the support unit, which helps on living among humans, protects on who don't have relatives, and assists them with daily life problems. Since Oni can't visit regular doctors, they also provide physical and mental health care. And additionally, they provide assistance during combat with the Motaro. He told them that they were now going to assist the support unit, which saddened Shiki. He told himself that he had thought this was a perfect opportunity to become strong. He remembered the man who killed his father and wondered if he would be there. But Naito told Shiki that the Momotaro he was looking for wasn't in Kyoto because the Momotaro organization also had branches like their own organization. Joji asked what kind of Motaru was stationed in Kyoto, but Nito told them that a very terrible Motaru was waiting for. The episode begins with the students go to an ordinary-looking restaurant where a creepy old woman welcomes them. Once they reach the living room, the old woman reveals a secret underground staircase that will lead them to their destination. Meanwhile, at another location, Subakiri, a captain of the Momotaro agency, has just finished hunting down a unit of Oni. He calls them a bunch of maggots pretending to be soldiers, and his vice captain, Yamogi, tells him that he went overboard again. She complains about all the mess he made because it is going to be a pain to clear it. And Subakiri replies that he just gets too annoyed when he sees maggots. He wishes that they got to face a female Oni instead, because they are resilient and can tolerate more pain than males, which makes them a good choice for his experiments. Yamogi tells him that his experiments are disgusting and she hates them, especially the thing that is walking towards them. Sabiri tells her not to be cold to his favorite creation, which is a blend of a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. He has named it Ugly, and that is the only thing Yamogi can agree with him on. Subakiri says that Ugly is his important research specimen as well as a loyal member of their anti-Oni biological weapons. Mommy Yamogi says that their job is to kill dangerous Oni and save civilians, and he should contribute more to that rather than wasting his time on creepy research. Sabiri tells her that Oni blood is a truly fascinating thing, and he is doing his best to help in his own way. He claims that if they can learn how to control On blood on their own, it will surely help the Momotaro agency tremendously, and even better, if they can turn the healing factor of the Oni blood into a medicine, they could become richer than Alan, Jeff, and Zuck combined. Yamogi reminds him that even the Momotaros have similar abilities, and Subakiri says that it isn't wise to experiment on people. However, the Oni are maggots in his eyes, and he says that they should experiment on them because simply killing them is a waste. A terrified Oni kid hears all of this while hiding behind a corner, and he tries his best to remain quiet. As soon as he hears the footsteps of the two Matiro agents head away from him, he takes a sigh of relief, and that turns out to be his fatal mistake, because Suberi hears him and immediately comes over to his location. The child freaks out, and Tsubobakiri decides to take him to the lab. Yumogi tells him that she will knock him out so that he doesn't create problems, but as she is trying to put him to sleep without anesthesia, a drop of blood spills on Tsubobakiri's coat. Yumogi realizes that this means trouble not for her, but for the Oni kid. Tsubiri walks up to him and starts kicking him, saying that even though he is fascinated by Oni blood, it is a filthy thing and he won't tolerate it on his uniform. He then asks the kid if his parents live nearby and were they part of the group he just killed. On getting no answer, he lifts up the corpses of the Oni nearby to show them to the kid, asking if his parents are here. The kid is too terrified to even speak, and Tsubobakiri decides to crush him with the corpses. Yumogi is creeped out by this because out of all the Momentero abilities she has seen, Tsububaker's is the most diabolical. The black mist that comes out of their bodies is actually a special bacteria that lives in their blood, and they can use it to create weapons. Tsubiri, however, can use the bacteria to control corpses, and she still can't get used to it. Soon, Tsubobakiri finishes killing the boy, and he tells Ugly to eat the giant Oni dumpling while they go ahead and find more maggots to kill. On the other hand, Shin and other students are walking through a wide tunnel, and Nato tells them that some shops in this area have access to this tunnel that leads to their bait. They soon reach the gate that leads them to the space right below the Aruda temple, which is fashioned like a traditional Japanese house. The students can't believe their eyes as Nato tells them that this is the headquarters of the Kyoto division of the Oni agency. Just then, a doctor comes out of a room complaining about all the work he has to do, but his attitude suddenly changes when he sees Nato. The doctor greets him cheerfully and then starts fixing his hair as he notices the blonde baddie. She turns him down immediately, but that doesn't let the Esther's heart get broken, because he is actually used to rejections. Shin asks who this clown is, and Nato introduces him as Kyoa, the commander of the support unit at the Kyoto base. Kyoa adds that he and Nato were classmates back in the academy, but Nato doesn't have time for his idle chatter. He decides to head to the front lines immediately, and Shin asks him to take him along as well. Other students also want to go with him rather than dealing with a weirdo like Kyoa, but Nato isn't going to listen to them. He tells Kyoa to use these brats as he pleases before he leaves, and just then the nurse tells Kyoa to get back in and do his work. She notices the students from the academy as well and tells them to get changed immediately because they need all the help they can get. They get dressed as assistant nurses quickly and then go to the makeshift hospital, where dozens of injured Oni are crying out in pain. One of them has been brought in just now, and he has lost both his legs along with some other life-threatening injuries. Shiki is horrified to see his condition, and the nurse also says that he has at most 3 minutes left to live at this rate. Kyoa just smiles at him and says that they won't let him die, and Shiki snaps at him, asking him not to make such careless and fake promises. Kyoa appreciates his honesty and kindness, but tells him that he is kind of a big deal here, and he decides to show the kids how real support work is done. In another location, Tsubobakiri and Yumoi have just finished dealing with the captain and vice captain of another group. The remaining Oni are terrified of them now, and Tsubobakiri is disappointed that he will have to deal with another bunch of nobodies when he was expecting someone strong. Well, his wishes are granted immediately as Nato comes there and quickly activates his ability. Tsubiri is pleased to see him, but Nato doesn't give him a chance to be happy for too long as he immediately unleashes his killer move on him. The Oni are really glad to see that Nato has come to save them, but Tsubiri didn't take any damage from the previous attack as he used the dead Oni captain and vice captain as his meat shields. Turns out he knows Nato already, and he talks to him like they are old friends. He asks what is he doing in Kyoto because this is not his area. Tsubiri then remarks that he has heard of a location where the Oni and Kyoto are gathering, and if he just wipes out that place, the entire problem will be solved. Nato keeps up his poker face as he says that he doesn't know anything about it, and Tsubokiri replies that he will give up if even Nato claims that the place is not real. He then says that he will go for sightseeing around the big temple instead, and Nato panics inside because he knows that Tsubokiri has really sharp instincts. He decides to stop him right here and gets ready to fight seriously. Back in the headquarters, Kyoa inserts multiple blood pipes into his body, and Shiki asks if they shouldn't be giving that blood to the injured instead. The nurse tells him to shut up and watch as Kyoa heads over to the most severely injured man. He asks him if he wants his hands or feet to regrow because he can't afford both right now. The man summons every bit of his strength to say that he wants his arms so that he can hug his children again. Kyoto promises that he will be able to do that, but this process is going to hurt like hell. He then slices his wrist open to pour his blood into the injured man's mouth, claiming that it boosts the healing ability of a normal Oni by many times. As soon as his blood starts showing effect, the man starts screaming in pain, and the nurse tells the students to hold him down. Kiki and others immediately follow her orders, and in the meantime, she tells the others to get more blood from the next room. Soon after that, something starts poking through the man's bandaged arms, and Shiki creeps out as he sees something that vaguely resembles human fingers. Other students get back too, and then suddenly the injured man regenerates his arms, and even the severe burn wounds on his chest heal completely. Shiki immediately heads over to Kyoa, asking if they can regenerate his legs too, and he affirms, but adds that they need to do it over time, and using small doses of his blood, since he has already consumed too much blood. The injured guy may develop antibodies if he drinks any more of it. Kyowa then heads over to the patient, telling him that he will be retired from the combat unit now, but he can join the support unit to help others out. He says that with a pair of prosthetics, he will be playing with his kids in no time, and the man is moved to tears on hearing that. Kyowa then turns to the students, telling them that they could be in the place of this guy in the future. He understands the glory chasing and aura farming that can only be done on the front lines. But he reminds them that people on the front lines can fight bravely only because there is someone to cover their back, and that is the support unit. Shiki and a few others are really impressed by him now, and they tell him that they are ready to help him in any way they can. Kyowa tells Shiki that he needs his help with another matter and takes him to a depressed girl named Mei, who was brought in yesterday after the Momotaro agency attacked her. Her parents are still missing, and Kyowa wants to use Shiki's kindness to make the girl feel better. Shiki takes up the job and tries talking to the girl, who gradually opens up to him. He asks her about school, and she tells him that she never went to school. As Shiki is wondering if the girl is a troublemaker like him, the support unit brings in some dead bodies from the battlefield, and Mei's parents are among them. She starts bawling like crazy as she sees them, and Kyowa says that he can't get used to such painful scenes even after all this time. However, there is a deeper and more sinister plan behind the corpses than anyone realizes. Tsubiri tells Nato that he laced some Oni corpses with his bacteria, fully aware that the support unit will take them to their base to give them a proper funeral, and then he can control the corpses from a distance and destroy the base. Nato is shocked to hear this, and Tsubakiri decides to try if his plan succeeded. He awakens the corpse of Mei's dad, while Shiki and Kyowa are distracted, and she is overjoyed, thinking that he is still alive. However, he starts strangling her under Tsubiri's command, but Shiki and Kyowa are quick to notice it. Kyowa realizes that this is Tsubakiri's ability, and he immediately tells Shiki to cover Mei's eyes. He obeys the order, and then Kyowa pierces the man's brain with 2 sharp knives, rendering him immobile. Mei starts crying once Shiki lets her see what happened to her dad. And then Kyowa realizes that there might be more puppet zombies here, just like this one. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Under Tsubakiri's influence, the Oni corpses begin attacking the workers of the support unit, and don't even spare the already wounded Oni who escape from battle. Kyoka struggles to take the lead in this chaos, as he himself is attacked by a dozen Oni corpses. Shiki, on the other hand, is getting choked by poor Mei's mom, and Mei can't do anything except beg with teary eyes, telling her mom to stop. The poor girl already saw her dad die seconds ago, so Shiki clearly can't just go ahead and stab her mom next right in front of her eyes again. Since Shiki still doesn't have a clear grasp of his Oni abilities, Nito had given him a handgun back when they were on the ship on their way to the city. The gun's bullets have Shiki's blood infused in them, making them more dangerous than regular bullets, and Shiki wonders if he should use the gun to free himself from Mei's mom's hold. With his own life on the line, he chooses the difficult option, grabs Mei close to him to prevent her from seeing what's about to happen, and then shoots her zombie mom in the head. Shiki then shoots the Oni that surrounded Kyoka and frees him from their hold. As Kyoka isn't fit for combat, he puts Shiki in charge of handling this mess, while he himself rushes away to bring the patients to safety. Meanwhile, the other students are also fighting the zombie Oni, but since they themselves aren't that great at controlling their blood, they have no other option but to use their regular human fists. After a few minutes of fighting, they manage to knock down several zombie Oni, but they just keep getting back up. Shiki comes there and informs everyone that these Oni corpses are under a Momotaro's control and can only be freed if their brains are destroyed. Jin steps up using his blood eclipse technique to cut down the Oni approaching him. Shiki, on the other hand, is playing Call of Duty. It pains him to do this, as he knows that these people have friends and families that care for them, but still, for the greater good, he continues shooting them. Meanwhile, Kyoka is busy bringing everything in order, and he commands all of his subordinates to get the patients somewhere safe. Shiki is almost about to cry. His enemy is the Momotaro, so why is it that he has to kill his own kind against his own will? This question screws with his mind, and Tsubakiri, who's on the other side imagining the exact thing happening at the Oni agency's base, can't help but laugh at the spectacle. Nito knows that he must do something quickly before the situation escalates further, so he draws his weapon, the umbrella sword. But as he charges at Tsubakiri, the arrogant guy doesn't even move and just uses the Oni corpses as body shields, making a twisted comment that Nito has just made an Oni shish kebab. Nito doesn't even realize that Tsubakiri's monster pet Ugly has sneaked up on him, but just as the beast is about to punch him, he dodges and the Oni shish kebab takes the hit. Nito is visibly saddened, seeing his comrades being toyed with and disrespected like this even after death. And Tsubakiri, noticing that, tells Naito mockingly that he should be happy these maggots are getting exterminated. Naito's patience has run out, so he decides to go all out, telling the rest of the Oni behind him to escape, as they will just get in his way. However, Tsubakari isn't going to allow any of them to leave, so he makes Yumogi use her abilities involving her melons, them to create a barrier around Nito and the other Oni. Nito demands an explanation as to what this black sphere is that has contained them, and Tsubakiri, confident that Nito won't be able to escape, explains that this is Yomogi's special ability, and unless she says so, they won't be able to leave. And that means Tsubakiri can just freely head to the Oni agency's hideout and kill the rest of them there before dealing with Naito here. That is, if he remains alive. Naito remains silent, hoping Tsubakiri doesn't know the location of the hideout. But Tsubakiri reveals that he had planted transmitters on every corpse he left behind, and all of those transmitters are now pointing to one location, right under the Iruda Dero building in Kyoto. Tsubakiri has nothing more to do here, so he walks away while laughing maniacally, leaving his pet Ugly behind to deal with Nito. Yumogi grants Ugly permission to enter the black sphere, and it gladly goes inside to grab its lunch. She then tags along with Tsubakiri, and he, like always, elaborates on what he is about to do. Now, according to him, that Ugly pet is a mass-introduced type beast, meaning there are many more like him at his disposal, so he can get rid of it anytime he likes. He decides to use it as a bomb to kill all of the Oni inside along with it. With just a snap of his fingers, the beast's belly begins to blow up, and before Nito can even figure out what he should do, the beast explodes, destroying everyone in the sphere. Tsubakiri looks back and becomes a little disappointed, as he had hoped the explosion would look more interesting. Regardless, he walks away confident that the explosion has gotten rid of all of the maggots, including the maggot's leader, Nato. On the other hand, Shiki and his teammates try their best to kill all the regenerating Onis. By the time they shoot the last one, they are all exhausted from the energy it has taken from them. They look at themselves and sigh in relief that it is all over. Kyoka informs them that he has taken all the injured Oni to safety and appreciates them for all they have done, admitting that if they weren't there, things would have gotten worse. They look at Mei, who is staring at her parents' corpses, feeling pity for the young girl. They all walk to meet her. Kyoka tries sympathizing with her, while Shiki feels worse because he was the one who shot her parents. He apologizes to her for making her witness such a miserable scene, as he recalls how it felt when he shot them. She looks at them, reassured, and tells them they don't have to feel bad. She admits that all her life she had lived in fear, hiding from place to place and couldn't even attend school. She knew that day would come, but she just didn't know when. So they don't have to feel bad. She reassures them, claiming they shouldn't worry about her. Those words make Shiki more worried. This young girl had just lost her parents, and instead of being in tears, she is reassuring them. He realizes how much the world has become a den of terrorists. He can't imagine a girl being this mature at a young age. When he was her age, all he did was watch superheroes and dream of becoming one. He recalls how his father looked at him as a child and how he would demonstrate the superhero sign. He assumes Mataro are meant to be superheroes who safeguard the world and give others a safe place to live, but he couldn't imagine they are actually the villains. If those meant to make the world better are the ones destroying it, then he will do them a favor by becoming a villain himself. He vows to Mei as he hugs her and tells her he would ensure he creates a world where she will be safe to smile again. Can he bring this vow into reality? He holds her to his chest while the other Onis watch in sadness, thinking about their reality and how their lives are nothing but exploitation in the eyes of the Momotaro. After the sad period ends, they have no choice but to move on. Kyoto calls Jin and tells him they have to move the remains of their fallen friends and bury them properly. He offers to take Jin to the cremation ground and comments that the ground is on their way to the hideout, though he is sure they didn't notice when they were coming in. He jokingly adds that if not for what happened, he wouldn't have shown them the place. All he is saying falls on deaf ears for Jin, who is still deep in thought about what he just witnessed. Meanwhile, Shiki and the others try to carry the corpses, but they are too heavy for Shiki, and he notices that one of his colleagues is just standing without doing anything. He accuses the boy of being lazy, but the boy tells him he is deep in thought about something. He has to be the only logical one among them. He explains that the fact those corpses could turn on them and they were attacked means there is a probability that their hideout has been compromised and the Motaro are nearby. Such a smart boy. He reveals his power is mainly for scouting and that he can use his blood to check for any risk around. He releases his blood and searches the area. He explains he can detect threats within 5 Ki and even confirm whether they are Momotaro or Oni. What a great power. He uses it and suddenly spots Tsubakiri and Yumogi nearby. The scene shifts to the entrance of Mizumoto, the Onis hideout. Tsubakiri has found their hideout and killed the guard. He excitedly calls their agency headquarters, asking them to send the dogs he created through his experiments to that location. When they ask what he is doing, he jokingly says it is an Oni exploration, and that to have a mass termination of Onis, he needs the dogs. He even requests a particular dog he has kept for a special occasion. Before ending the call, he recalls that during their last Momotaro meeting, there was a special Oni they discussed, so he asks for the file on that Oni too. Yumogi looks at the dark stairs leading to the hideout and assumes it must be deep, with several Onis inside. She asks Tsubakiri if she should send poison down before they enter to kill some of them. While he likes the idea, he suddenly stops and gives a wicked laugh. He refuses her idea, saying he will enter the place himself, ask all the Onis for their names before killing them. When Yumoi asks why, he reveals he is looking for an Oni named Shiki, a special Oni he doesn't want to kill. Instead, he wants to take him alive and experiment on him to learn about his special power. He excitedly sets off down the stairs to explore. It is going to be a difficult situation for Shiki, especially because he hasn't yet mastered his power. This is how today's episode of this anime ends. Wait for us in the next episodes. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all that is new. After Jin and Kyoka finish up in the crematorium, they start heading back to the others. Jin asks about the crematorium, and Kyoka explains that it is needed to take care of their people who die in war, and he lets Jin know that he is about to step into that cruel world too. Suddenly, Tsubaki appears behind Kyoka and pushes a knife into him before he can react. Jin unleashes his weapon, but Yomogi restrains him. Realizing that they are no match for the two who just appeared, Kyoka tells Jin to head back to Shiki and the others to warn them of the impending threat. After Jin's departure, Yomogi uses her power to create a prison to make sure no one can get out or come into the facility. Even though he is staring danger in the face, Kyoka remains his ever-charming self. Kyoka is having a dumb conversation in his head when Tubakiri asks him if he knows Shiki. Kyoka ignores the question and pulls out a syringe. The syringe contains wolfsbane, but before he can get the chance to use it, Subiri dashes toward him and leaves a clean cut on his neck, forcing his red liquid to spill everywhere. Kyoka loses his balance and crashes to the ground. Subiri is disappointed that Kyoka didn't put up a fight before dying. He is about to use his undead power on Kyoka's corpse when he notices the arrival of his Chimaeus. He orders Yomogi to grant them access. Yomogi raises the barrier for Chimaeus, and they come bearing a gift for Tsubakiri. They brought a coffin for Tsubakiri, and the coffin contains his most prized experiment. Meanwhile, Jin has made it back to the clinic, and he is shocked to find it practically empty. Shiki reveals that Guji's ability was able to detect the presence of Mamotaro in the area. They started evacuating the patients and non-combatants, but just as they were about to finish up, a wall came up, restricting them from leaving. There are only a few of them left, and this is mostly the students and Mei. Ikari suggests that they split up and find a way out, but one of the nurses reveals that she has checked everywhere and all the exits are blocked. They are still deliberating on what to do when a chimera enters the room. He walks toward one of them, and he foolishly stands there until the chimera gobbles him up like a snack. Seeing their comrade get eaten triggers their dormant sense of survival, and they all dip out of the room. Tubakiri, Yomogi, and his Chimaeas finally make it to the clinic hall. He sits on the coffin while he orders his subordinates to wipe out everyone in the facility except Shiki. Elsewhere, Kuina and Rokiro are hiding in the break room. Rokiro is thinking of death as usual, while Kina is trying to find a good outfit that will not restrict her movements during a fight. Fortunately, she finds a pair of shorts and a top that fits exactly what she wants. Rokiro continues to whine like a baby, and just then, a chimera heads their way. Kuna tells Rokiro that they have no choice but to fight. Rokiro starts to shiver, saying he is useless when he is anxious. And he begs Kina to handle everything on her own. Kina hears this and decides to take responsibility because that's who she is. Kina points to the closet in the room and tells him to hide there while she takes care of the monster. The chimera breaks through the wall, but Sina remains unfazed. And if anything, she is hyped to fight the creature. The chimera asks her if she is shaky, but she says no, and this triggers the chimera to go after her. He tries to relieve her of her head, but she dodges everything the creature throws at her thanks to her agility. During the tussle between the two, the closet falls over and Rokiro passes out. Kuina soon gets tired of the chimera chasing her around and decides that it is time she takes the fight seriously. Kuina tears her hand and activates her blood eclipse, which comes out in the form of boxing gloves. Meanwhile, one of the chimeas finds Akatig, who is eager for a fight. The chimera asks Akatig if he is Shiki, but this pisses him off, telling the chimera not to put him in the same sentence as Shiki the loser. The loser in question is running around with Mei, and he picks the best place his dumb brain can pick to hide, which is behind some flour. When Rokiro regains consciousness, he doesn't hear anything, and he assumes that Sina has defeated the monster, which means he can now come out of the closet. He excitedly opens the closet door, only to find the monster staring at him. He is about to pass out again when he notices that the monster is focused elsewhere. The monster starts listening to Sina like a pet, and she kicks it to the ground before delivering a barrage of blows to the monster's head to eliminate it. Even after eliminating it, Kina doesn't feel satisfied. And it turns out that Kina's blood has a way of putting enemies under her control, making them lose their will to fight. Rokiro is impressed with what he just witnessed, and Kuna reminds him that she already assured him that she is going to protect him, because this is who she is. Rokiro thanks Kuina for saving him, and Kina lays him on a bed like a baby while waiting for the next chimera to show up. The moment the monster shows up, Kuina is ready to beat some sense into it, as long as it means protecting her glorious king, Rokiro. Kina is pissed that the monster is coming to ruin her fun, and she tells Rokiro to hide while she engages the monster. The chimera appears to be different from the last, as it launches its long arms at Kuna. She dodges and activates her blood eclipse to punch some sense into the chimera, but just as she is about to reach it, the chimera moves and uses its long arm to pierce Kuina's body. It doesn't stop there, as it grabs Kuina's arm, restraining her movement. Chimera then throws Kuina around the room until she becomes disoriented, leaving her at the chimera's mercy. The chimera stomps on her repeatedly, while Rokiro remains in the closet. Having his Zenitsu moment, Rokiro prays that someone appears to help Kina before she dies, but he is the only one there who can actually help. He stares at his shaking hand, wondering when he became so timid. Apparently, Rokiro once had a crush when he was younger, and her name was Lulu. He enjoys being around Lulu, and because he wants to impress his crush, he does loads of dangerous stuff. Even though he is a bit scared, the two lived in a backwater town where there were other Oni like them. Rokiro enjoys dancing with his crush every evening, but she doesn't have enough stamina to stay for long since she is suffering from an illness. Because her Oni horns had appeared, Lulu could not be taken to a human hospital and was only attended to by an Oni doctor who visited the village. However, things go from bad to worse when the Matero agency attacks the village, terminating the doctor in the process. Because of this, Lulu lost the only person who could take care of her. Nonetheless, Rokiro remains by her side, assuring her that he will go to the next town to get her a doctor. Lulu no longer has the strength to stay alive, but before she dies, she tells Rokiro that he is cool, and that he should remain like that. After saying these words, she dies right in front of Rokiro, completely breaking him apart. Momentarily, her crush's loss gets to him and he falls into despair. Rokiro's originally black hair starts turning white, and before he knows it, he becomes a pessimistic and anxiety-inflicted fellow. While hiding in the closet, it dawns on Rokiro that he became who he is because of the loss of his friend. Rokiro sees himself as a hopeless fool who can't operate without Lulu. Suddenly, he remembers Lulu's words about how cool he is. He remembers this at the right time, as he is able to dash out of the closet and save Kina just before the Chimera impales her. Rokiro admits that Lulu will be disappointed in him if she sees how pathetic he has become. After his crush's death, he has been the opposite of cool. Even though he is still scared, Rokiro transforms into the one person who can give him strength. And this is Lulu. Lulu hugs him. Rokiro manages to embrace his blood behind, and changes into a robe on his body. Rokiro wields a fan as his weapon while unleashing loads of blood that have been turned into sharp blades. Rokiro charges toward the Chimera, and using his dancing techniques, he relieves the Chimera of its hands. Rokiro continues on the offense while imagining Lulu dancing beside him just like old times. Rokiro chases after the Chimera and delivers several razor-sharp cuts to its body, toying with it before finally cutting its head off. Rokiro is proud of himself, and he promises to stay cool while Lulu watches him from the other side. Elsewhere, Shiki finally tells Mei to come out from behind the flowers, telling her that the monsters are gone. However, Mei is afraid to come out because she is still riled up with her parents' death and with everything that she has witnessed in the last couple of minutes. Mei mentions that she is tired and would rather join her parents in the afterlife. As usual, Shiki kicks into Big Brother mode and starts to spew his motivational nonsense. He tells Mei to keep on living, while assuring her that he is going to crush those who have caused them pain. After he is done motivating the girl, he stands up to leave, telling her to hide if the monsters show up. As he is about to leave, Mei reveals her fear that Shiki will lose, but Shiki assures her that such a thing will not happen because this is what his heart is telling him. Shiki's motivation and refusal to give up get to Mei as her eyes light up with a new sense of hope. On the surface, Nato is called back to life by the Oni warriors standing around him. Nato opens his eyes and immediately gets back up. Asking his colleagues how long he has been out of commission, the team tells him that he was out for 15 minutes. They apologize for the inconvenience they caused. They know he got injured because he was protecting them. They are confident that Nato would have been able to handle the situation better if he had not been looking after them. Nato tells them not to dwell on the situation as he starts moving, asking them to follow him. The warriors are confused, asking him where he is headed with his injured body, and he replies that he is going back to the base since his students are still there. Back at the base, Shiki runs into Tsubiri, who is sitting in the main hall. Just from the way he is sitting and the vibe he is giving off, Shiki immediately figures out that he is the Mamotaro agent who can manipulate corpses. Tsubakiri is not interested in whatever Shiki has to say until he realizes that he is Shiki, the one he has been searching for. His face lights up in excitement while Shiki complains about Tsubakiri's sick power that allows him to desecrate corpses. Tsubakiri laughs at Shiki, telling him not to act like a human because Oni are not humans, and they sure have no human rights. This pisses Shiki off and he whips out his gun, telling Tsubakiri that he is going to end him. On the other hand, Jin runs back to check on Kyoka, but he runs into Yumogi. Yumogi teases him, telling him that Kyoka is dead, but Jin assures Yumogi that he doesn't care about anyone else aside from himself. He unleashes his saw and leaps toward Yumogi. His weapon hits, but Jin notices that he didn't get the feeling that he was supposed to. He turns around and realizes that Yumogi had constructed a wall to block his attack. Yumogi confidently boasts, telling Jin that he will never cut her. In the main hall, Shiki and Tsubakiri are still having a go at each other, but Tsuburi has disarmed Shiki. Tsubakiri teases Shiki, telling him to use his special blood, and Shiki obliges. He unleashes a big gun from his arm, leaving Tsubakiri totally excited. Shiki aims at him and fires the weapon, leaving a big explosion that rocks the building. However, when the smoke clears, Tsubakiri is still standing, and there is no single cut or damage on his body. He remains beautiful, as ever, while taunting Shiki to see what he can do. Since Shiki has decided to hit him with something powerful, Tsububiri also decides to get serious. He opens the coffin, and from inside his prized puppet steps out, but it turns out to be an undead wearing a Mamotaro uniform. Shiki cannot believe that Tsububikiri went as low as turning one of his agents into a puppet, but Tsuburi calls him an idiot, since he doesn't understand what happened. Apparently, the dude absolutely disliked the Oni when he was alive, to the point that he actually offered himself up as a specimen to be experimented on. The pooper unleashes a wave of strange energy from his hand that knocks Shiki to the ground. From Tsubabikiri's explanation, it turns out that the puppet can use the power of gravity. Meanwhile, Nato and the other soldiers are trying to get access to the facility, but Yomogu's wall is making it difficult for them. They ask Nato if he can break in, and he says yes, but it is going to be risky. Since there are tourists above the facility, he says they might get hurt. The only solution is to evacuate the civilians, but they don't have the authority like the Metero agency. Nato is left in a dilemma when Guji shows up on the scene. Guji informs Nato that he managed to rescue most of their personnel, but the students are trapped. Momentarily, Homer also arrives at the scene. Homer reveals that she was sent to render help, but she doesn't know how. Guji has always had a crush on Homer, and he immediately loses it at the sight of the girl. He starts making moves toward her, and Nato urges him to get his business together. Guji protests, saying getting the girl is very important to him. Nato is about to tell Homer to leave when he realizes that he can actually use the girl. He takes her to the top of the mountain where they can see the tourist center below them. Nato tells Guji that he plans to set off a landslide to force the civilians to run away from the tourist venue. Guji is worried that the landslide might be dangerous, but Nato assures him that no one will get hurt in the process. Nato tells Guji to organize everybody, and once the landslide starts, he and the Oni warriors should get them out. To cause the landslide, Nato tells Homer to summon her Savage Titan. Homer is shocked and scared at the same time, but Nato assures her that nothing will happen since he is there. Nato drives the cart to Ari and leads them ashore, where Homer continues arguing, saying she doesn't have control over the Titan. Disappointed, Nato tells her to forget about it. He reaches out to Guji, telling him that the plan has been canceled. He then turns around to tell Homer that she has been expelled, letting her know that he doesn't want someone he can't use. Nato is about to leave when Homer stops him, telling him that she is scared that unleashing her power will get someone hurt. Nato then tells her that she is not only affected by fear, but by her refusal to accept change. He mentions that every student has done something that they are not proud of, but they are all working to atone. Nato lets Homer know that she is the only one who has the power to control her blood. After hearing these words from her teacher, Homer summons the courage to summon the Titan. Nato then tells Guji that the plan is back on. Once the Titan spots Nato, it starts attacking him. It punches the ground so hard that it causes everything to erupt, and it automatically triggers a landslide. Once this happens, Guji is able to convince the civilians to run away from the area. Once they are all gone, he informs Nato, and in turn, Nato dodges the Titan before knocking Homer out. The moment Homer loses consciousness, the Savage Titan disintegrates. Meanwhile, Yomogi and Jin are still battling it out. Jin gets trapped in Yomoga's wall, and Yomogi assures him that there is no escape for him. She plans to shrink the cage until Jin is crushed flat inside. Jin argues that he will burst his way out, but Yumayo mentions that this is going to take immense mental strength to do. She doesn't believe that Jin has the capacity to do this, but to her greatest surprise, Jin breaks out of the shrunken cage. He tells Yomogi that he once slept in an air duct, so Yomogi's cage is nothing to him. The two are about to tear at each other again when Akati shows up. He just terminated a chimera and he is absolutely pissed off. Jin tells him to back off, but he is too hyped up to do that. Akati gets even more interested when he sees the big balloons sitting on Yomogi's chest. He activates his blood and Yomogi immediately puts up a wall to stop them. But Ikari reaches her at a blinding speed. Before she can react, she gets kicked in the face. Apparently, Ikari's technique allows him to use his anger as a source to generate various effects, but these effects differ, and even Ikari himself cannot predict what he will summon. This time around, it turns out to be boots, which granted him speed. Yomogi admits that she might have a problem dealing with Ikari. On the outside, Nato uses his power to break down Yomogi's wall. The effect from the destruction leaves the foundation of the facility shaken. Nato tells the warriors to get everyone out quickly because the entire place will soon come down. Nato and the warriors soon find Jin and Akari facing off against Yomogi. Nato points out the fact that she is outnumbered and he advises her to surrender. However, Yomogi is a stubborn Mamotero agent, and instead of backing down, she takes off her jacket to prepare for an even more brutal battle. On the other hand, Shiki manages to escape the range of the gravity effect launched by Tsubakiri's puppet. However, he is exhausted from it. Shiki fires another shot from his gun, but the puppet's gravity easily dispels the bullet. The puppet then hits Shiki with a powerful gravity bullet that runs through his body like a 100G force. Shiki crashes to the ground in pain, and Tsubakiri mocks him for being weak. Tsuburi mentions that there is no way he is Kishin's son. When Shiki asks who Kishin is, Tsubakiri reveals that he is the most powerful Oni general in history, and it seems Shiki is his child. If you made it to the end, like the video and comment, "Nato is cool." See you in the next one.